everyone to our webinar on better buildings for healthy communities in Colorado. Great. So we are offering translation for this webinar. If you are in need of Spanish language interpretation, please follow the instructions on the screen. Note that we haven't had the slides translated, but we will be sure to post some translated slides online afterwards. So if you know someone who wants to be here and wants to read along, we will be offering that afterwards. Great. So if everyone could please feel free to drop your name in the chat and organization if applicable, and just a quick where you're joining us from. That would be awesome. My name is Allie Mark. I am an associate at Lotus Engineering and Sustainability. My colleagues Kim, Molly, and Natalia are joining as well. Natalia will be translating for us. So if you have any questions with that regard, please feel free to drop a note to Natalia. And finally, last but not least, we have Adam from the Colorado Energy Office, who is the program manager for this project, joining us as well. So for a quick rundown of what we are talking about today, we are going to do some welcome and introductions. We then will go into Energy Codes 101 to kind of explain what the technical policy tool that we are talking about today and why they are important. And we will go over the Energy Code Board and talk a little bit about who they are and how you as stakeholders can participate and make your voice heard. And then finally, we will be asking you all to help us figure out what is the best way to keep you all informed and updated on this process, and for us to collect your feedback on the potential impacts that this process may have for you all. As a reminder, this is intended to be a non-technical meeting. If you have some technical code proposals or questions, please feel free to either simplify that in asking, or you can email Kim and Adam directly. We'll have their contact information in a later slide. But for now, the objectives that we have for this evening is to really bring more folks into this code development process. We want to make sure that the impact on people's lives is clear, and share opportunities for folks to be able to give feedback and let us know what their priorities are for this code. And to help us understand how we can improve our engagement process and reduce barriers to participation. With that, I will turn it over to Kim to explore some energy codes.
Thank you, Allie. Great to see everybody. Thank you guys for joining us for the launch of our public engagement process. So today we're going to start by going through an Energy Code 101. We're going to talk about what energy codes are, why they are important, and how they impact the places we live, work, study, and play. So we're going to start with the question of what is an energy code. In Colorado, each town or county adopts its own building code. This code outlines how local government expects new buildings in their community to be built. The goal of the building codes is to make sure that homes and buildings are built safely to protect the people's lives who are living and working within them. Things like making sure ceilings don't fall down, things don't break, things like that. An energy code, by distinction, works the same way as a building code. Each town or county adopts an energy code that outlines how homes in the community should be built. The distinction is that energy codes, different from building codes, their purpose is to ensure that the buildings are built to use energy in the most efficient way, to make sure whoever is using that building is not spending a large amount of money paying energy bills. Also, to make sure that occupants are healthy and comfortable. Building and energy codes are meant to be applied primarily to new construction, but in some instances, they also apply to existing buildings. And energy codes are important for a lot of different reasons. They are important tools to make sure that homes and businesses that need to use and pay for energy are able to do so in a way that minimizes those costs. They also help make sure the indoor air quality of the building is not harming the people that are inside the building itself. And then zooming out a bit, energy codes can also help us address the problem of climate change. Climate change we know to be happening in this state because people have released a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is causing it to warm up. One of the sectors of carbon emissions in Colorado that's important and can be addressed with building codes is our buildings. The energy code, which helps define how much energy homes can use, helps us cut back on wasteful energy use in our homes and businesses. And just an important note, the emissions graph you see on the slide there, showing the emissions from our buildings is just the emissions associated with on-site combustion. So this piece of our pie for emissions does not include electricity use in the buildings. Next slide, please. So energy codes generally are pretty dense. They have some wonky language, and it's not the easiest for the vast majority of us to understand what's happening in these codes. And so the concepts and requirements, if you're not a building science professional, can be a little bit challenging or abstract. So the easiest way we wanted to attack this topic with you all is to make it relatable to the spaces that you all spend time in your day-to-day lives. So we're going to take you on a tour of a building and point out what parts of the building that you might interact with that are actually shaped by the energy code, to give you all a good sense of how the energy code impacts the different aspects of our buildings. So if you'll indulge us, close your eyes for a second and think about, what indoor space do you spend a lot of time in? Is it your office in a high-rise? Is it your apartment building, your home, your business? And so we're going to now go on a little tour of that space. So with your favorite inside space in mind, welcome to our building tour. The first stop on our tour is the walls and doors of the space you're envisioning. The energy code says to a builder how they need to construct a wall to make sure it insulates the building in the right way. Think of a big, thick, warm jacket you might put on during a snowstorm. The insulation in your jacket can be compared to the insulation around the outside of your building. It's supposed to keep the people inside protected from the temperatures outside. The energy code could say the wall needs to be like a very light puffy, or only having some insulation, or something like a thick, warm winter jacket with a lot of insulation. These standards in the energy code help improve the comfort of the people inside the building and reduce the gas or electricity that is needed to heat or cool the building, the space inside the building. And lastly, energy codes help make sure there aren't holes in the walls or cracks in the door that might let outside air in or let that heated or cooled air inside your home out, which can also impact the amount of energy needed to heat or cool your space. Next up, we've got windows. So have you ever stood by a window and it feels like there's cold air actually coming through the window? I know I've experienced that. And so similar to doors and walls, there are different types of windows that provide more insulation than others. And the energy code says to builders, you need to install windows that help insulate a home or building so that the hot or cold air outside cannot seep through into the inside space. So just like doors and walls, higher insulative windows help improve the comfort of the space and reduce the energy you need to heat or cool that space. And then our final piece of insulation, I guess we could say, is roofs and ceilings. So let's consider the roofs and ceilings of your favorite space. This is another important component of the energy code. Heat rises, and as we know, making it very easy for heat to escape out of a home or building through the roof. And I'm using heat as the example here because in Colorado, it is often pretty chilly. So the energy code tries to help stop this heat loss by putting in place requirements to insulate the roof or ceilings so heat can't escape. And if we go back to our winter weather analogy, you've got your jacket, your thick insulative jacket, which is your walls, your windows, your doors, making sure the heat doesn't escape. And the ceiling and roof insulation is that hat that sits on top of your head that helps the heat not escape from above. So similarly, almost similarly, this helps keep our buildings comfortable and makes it so the folks in the building don't need to continue to use energy to heat a space to make up for that loss. And I see a hand. I'll just note that we're going to go through a couple slides and then we'll have about 10 minutes for Q&A. So please keep your hands up and we will get to your questions in just a moment. Okay. So now, because the energy code says that we must put on our warm insulative jacket, and we're trying our best to not let outdoor air into the space or let the conditioned air in our space out into the world. We need to also make sure that the air quality in the building is getting constantly refreshed so that we're bringing in fresh outside air into that space. Ventilation systems are also are a part of the energy code and help bring in outside air in a controlled way so that the air can be heated up or cooled down before it gets into the building. That way people inside the building are consistently getting fresh outdoor air, but rather than it coming through cracks in the wall, from outside, it comes through a ventilation system and helps to not disrupt the comfort of the building occupants as they're getting that fresh air delivered. And this is an incredibly important standard within the energy code to help protect human health as we spend most of our days in inside spaces where pollutants can build up and make us sick. So ventilation in a home or building can also look like windows that open or close to let in fresh air. As we all know, there are months of the year in Colorado where it is perfect outside and you don't need heat or AC. So operable windows and making those available is also something that can be influenced by the energy code. So speaking of heating, a very important element of the energy code is, or that is covered by the energy code, is the type of heating and cooling systems in a building. There's a big range of efficiencies when it comes to heating and cooling system. And by efficiency, we simply mean how well does this appliance turn gas or electricity into heat or cool air. Some appliances may run at a lower efficiency, say 80%, while others may run at a higher efficiency, say 100%. The higher the efficiency, the less gas or electricity you need to pay for to heat or cool your home. Standards for heating and cooling can be compared with requirements for things like installing thermostats that can be programmed to make sure that the heat and cooling is only working when it needs to be, rather than having those systems run around the clock. These standards are important to make sure whoever needs to use energy in the building can do so without needing to pay a lot more for the same outcome. Someone with a 90% efficient heating system will pay less in energy bills than someone with a 60% efficient heating system, for example. And who doesn't love a hot shower at the end of a long day? Hot water, whether it's used for showering, dishes, laundry, you name it, is also something covered by the energy code. Similarly to heating and cooling systems, equipment in your building that heats the hot water for your shower or for your dishwasher or for just your sink comes with different levels of efficiency. The energy code says to builders that the appliances that make hot water for us must meet a certain efficiency, again, to help with the folks who are using that building in that space save money and still be able to use hot water. Now take a moment to think about the lighting in your favorite indoor space. The energy code has requirements that say just how efficient the lighting must be. And if it can be, the energy code also impacts whether the lighting in your space has dimmable capabilities or can automatically turn off when nobody is home. These standards also help save people money by reducing the electricity use of lights while also making sure that lights that aren't in use or don't need to be in use because let's say it's the middle of the day, they're not in use if they don't have to be. So depending on where you're at with your vision of your favorite indoor space, you may have appliances in that space, such as a refrigerator or a dishwasher or an oven. Or you may be picturing a space like your office that is full of computers and desktop screens and chargers. Appliances are something that's managed by the energy code. And because they use energy, the energy codes help dictate how efficient those appliances need to be. When it comes to other uses of electricity, so anything we plug in, right? Charging things for our phones and computers, our computer screens, our TVs, the energy code can also help influence these by shutting down those systems when people aren't using them. And now more and more across the state of Colorado, we're seeing EVs on the road. And interestingly enough, the energy code also in the state of Colorado touches on electric vehicles. And as people adopt electric vehicles, we know it's going to be important that they have access to charging that EV, whether it's where they live, they work, they study, or they play. And energy codes can help ensure that new homes, new apartments, new office buildings, etc., have EV charging stations available to residents and occupants. So it more easily supports that the transition to an EV from a gas-powered vehicle. And lastly, does your favorite place that you were envisioning have solar on the roof? If not, have you ever considered putting solar on your roof? Producing solar on your roof can help lower your electricity bill because rather than paying for electricity from your utility, you can produce your own electricity. And energy codes help make sure that homes and businesses have a space reserved on the building and on the roof for future solar systems. So that way, any future homeowner or building owner, if they want to take advantage of something like solar power, can have the benefit of being able to install that solar on their roof. Next slide, please. And then there are two bonus categories that we want to talk about because it is Colorado and we know that there are many parts of this state that are inundated most of the year with snow and cold weather. So pools and hot tubs are something that can be managed by the energy code to share how much the efficiency of the systems that run these different pools or hot tubs, as well as the insulation that may be required as far as coverings for these so that they don't lose too much of their heat in the outdoor spaces. And then last but not least, snow melt. So in a cold climate like Colorado, we'll oftentimes in mountain or colder communities see sidewalks, driveways, or walkways that have heat under the sidewalk that help melt the snow. And these systems use a large amount of energy, but the energy code can also include standards for the efficiency of these systems to help limit the amount of energy use that is going into melting snow and make them as efficient as possible. And this is just another version of another photo of what that can look like under the concrete when the snow melt system is built. So that wraps up our home tour. Hopefully you all had fun bouncing around your favorite space and thinking about these different energy code elements. So now we're going to open up Q&A. And I'm just going to make sure that I have my Q&A open here. And if you have questions, please raise your hand now, and we are happy to answer those. All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Team, are you all seeing any hands raised? Okay. Well, as questions come up, we'll have another session for Q&A. So please, if you've got questions, don't hesitate to share them. There are no bad questions. And for now, I will pass it over to Adam Berry to talk through the Energy Code Board, its purpose, and a little bit more about how you can get involved in this process.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim. As Kim mentioned, Adam Berry with the Colorado Energy Office. I oversee the work at the Energy Office that deals with Energy Code development as well as our Energy Code programs and policy. So for those of you I have not met, always feel free to reach out to me with any questions. But I'm going to be providing an overview of what the Energy Code Board is, what they are doing currently, and then we will be talking about how you can get your voice and your perspective shared with the board. Next slide. So essentially, what is the Energy Code Board? So House Bill 22-1362, which was passed in the 2022 Colorado legislative session, created the Energy Code Board to develop the state's model energy code. There are actually two codes that the Energy Code Board was tasked with developing, and this is the second of those two. So the first code, which was called the Model Solar and Electric Ready Code, was adopted in 2023. It dealt with electric readiness, so essentially wiring and electric capacity that's necessary to support future all-electric appliances, EV charging, so enabling homes and buildings to have EV charging in the future, and then also enabling homes and buildings to have future rooftop solar. And so that code was developed in 2023 and is now part of the state's minimum energy code requirements. Next slide. So as far as this current process that the Energy Code Board is currently engaged in, we are developing, as I said, the second of these model energy codes, which is called the Low Energy and Carbon Code. It is required as part of that House bill that I mentioned earlier. And as part of that House bill, cities and counties across the state of Colorado are going to be required, when updating or adopting any of their building codes after 2026, we'll have to start using this code that the Energy Code Board is developing. Of the priority areas of the Energy Code Board's task, the House bill specifically called out two particularly high priorities for the Energy Code Board to consider in developing this model code. The first of these is, of course, given the name of the code, I think you can imagine, to reduce carbon pollution and energy consumption in new homes and commercial buildings as much as possible. And then, of course, as all of us are well aware, we certainly have housing affordability challenges in Colorado that necessitate that this work be done with the priority of also making sure that homes are being built affordably. And so we will be considering both of those criteria as the Energy Code Board moves forward with this process. Next slide. So who is the Energy Code Board and who is on it? So as you can see here, there are 21 representatives of the Energy Code on the Energy Code Board, representing a number of different sectors and interest groups around the state. A number of them include affordable housing representatives. We have mechanical, electrical, and plumbing representatives, including a couple of union representatives. We have energy efficiency and renewable energy experts. We have an architect on the board. And we have local government representatives, including two, well, essentially two building officials, and then other folks who also work in local government that will oversee the energy codes as they are being implemented in the jurisdictions across the state. And then we also have a utility representative, and we have pretty wide diversity of rural and regional folks across the state. We have primarily at least one person on the board from nearly every region of Colorado, as well as every climate zone of Colorado. And so these board members were designated by the House Bill 1362 in terms of what roles they had to play, but ultimately the individuals who are on the board were selected by the director of the Colorado Energy Office, and then the executive director of the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. Next slide. And so there are a number of engagement opportunities with the Energy Code Board. And so we're just going to go over what those different opportunities are and talk a little bit about how you can engage through these different opportunities. So the first that I'll talk about is there is a comment form that is on the Colorado Energy Office's website, and we will also link it in the chat here once I am done talking. And essentially this provides an opportunity for anyone at any time to provide the input that you would like, as well as any kind of proposals you would like to see included in the Model Energy Code. And so that opportunity is live 24/7. It will be available throughout the entire process and will be considered, the comments that are submitted through the comment form will be considered by the Energy Code Board on a regular basis. The second of those is public meetings. And so currently we have 3 public engagement meetings scheduled with the Energy Code Board, where members of the public will be able to engage with board members directly at various stages of the process for development of the low energy and carbon code. And so those will be different opportunities that are spread out throughout the process, including one that is actually coming up in a couple of weeks. We will provide the schedule here for those public meetings on one of the upcoming slides. But those are great opportunities for members of the public to share comments or considerations for the Energy Code Board to be thinking about as they are developing this code. And then finally, we are actually going to be convening an equity committee, which will help us identify not only who are we impacting with these energy codes, but what are the impacts that we are having with the energy code that we are developing. And so those folks will be helping us understand the equity implications of all of the work that we are doing. Next slide. So just to give a brief overview of the comment form. As I said, it is hosted on the Energy Code Board's website. I believe Kim dropped the link to it in the chat. And ultimately, it is an opportunity, as I said, for folks to submit questions comments on an ongoing basis to be considered by the Energy Code Board. The results are shared with the board at regular intervals. And ultimately, most board meetings will include time to discuss comments in addition to those public comment meetings that will be specifically for live public comment. So you can see at the bottom there's the URL for the Energy Office's Energy Code Board page, which you can find those public comment links on. We are actually currently working to slightly revamp the structure of the Energy Code Board page to make it easier to find those links. So this may not be exactly what you see, but hopefully it'll be easier than what is currently on the website. So stay tuned for that. Next slide. So this is what you'll see when the comment form is, when you open it. Essentially, there will be a little bit of an introduction on why it's important to engage in public comment, and then there will be opportunities for folks to select whether they want to submit a public comment, a code proposal, so something technical that you would like to actually see incorporated into the code, or a combination of the two. You can submit both a comment and a code proposal as well. And so this is an opportunity to, outside of those public meetings that where you will be able to engage directly with the Energy Code Board, this will be another opportunity to provide your thoughts and suggestions. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we will be having 3 public meetings at different stages of this process. So those meetings will occur. One is upcoming very soon in a couple of weeks. One will be later on in the fall, and then ultimately one is likely going to be in the winter or early into the next year. At this point, the Energy Code Board is also scheduled to have debrief meetings after each of those public engagement meetings, and that will provide an opportunity for the board to consider all of the feedback that was provided live, and we'll be able to discuss which proposals or which comments they want to consider, and how they would like to consider incorporating those comments into the final model energy code that we are developing. And all of these engagement meetings are going to be virtual, and you can see the dates that they are currently planned for on the screen right now. Note that those times may be subject to change, as we are trying to make sure we are accommodating as many people's schedules as possible and not always hosting meetings at the same time. So we are likely going to be changing some of those times to make sure we have wider access to the Energy Code Board. Next slide. So as I mentioned, in about 2 weeks, 16 days from today, we will be having our first public meeting, which is on May 30th from 9 to 11 a.m. Mountain Time. And this is an opportunity for both technical and non-technical audiences to provide feedback to the Energy Code Board on what kinds of things you would like to see in the model energy code. So this is really kind of an initial opportunity for the public to engage with the Energy Code Board and really give them an idea of what your vision is for healthy, efficient, safe buildings, and how you would like the energy code to address that vision for what those buildings should look like. So if you're interested in learning more information or getting regular updates on the Energy Code Board, we send email updates quite regularly, which include updates on, reminders for meetings if folks are interested in attending board meetings and listening in on the discussions that are being had. We also provide updates on ways to provide comments and code proposals to the board. So there are both opportunities for those, and making sure that we are continuously keeping you up to date on what is going on with the Energy Code Board. So if you are interested, I know many of you are already probably signed up on this listserv, but for those of you who are not and would like to be, you are able to use that QR code that is on the screen now to sign up. And Kim also just dropped into the chat the link where you can sign up for that as well. And then finally, just wanted to talk a little bit about what the equity committee that I referenced earlier is going to look like and what the intention of that equity committee is. So the ultimate goal of the equity committee is to make sure we are bringing up fairness and equity concerns with the Energy Code Board. Obviously, as Kim noted in her discussion about what energy codes impact, the equity piece of that is really universal. Everybody in the state of Colorado interacts with buildings in some way or another, and we want to make sure that we are taking into account all perspectives, that we are getting regional and climate zone diversity, economic diversity, racial diversity, all kinds of different other perspectives that are being brought in to consider the equity of the energy codes that we are in the process of developing. And finally, we are ultimately wanting to look to build capacity in community leaders to make sure that folks are aware of the importance of healthy and affordable buildings and are engaged in making sure that we have energy efficiency and environmental and health impacts being taken into account as we are moving forward with building policy. So there are expected to be about 4 meetings of the equity committee, which is currently being recruited right now. And those meetings will happen throughout key points of the code development process to make sure we are staying continuously informed about the needs for equity considerations in the model energy code. All right, well, that was a lot of information. So we're happy to take questions. And I know we've gotten a few in the chat. So we can address some of the ones in the Q&A. So one of the first question that I see here in the Q&A is, are there any builders on the board? Yes, there is a home builder representative on the board. And his name's Andrew Harris. He represents American Richmond Homes. And so he is our home builder representative on the board. Next question is, are you accepting code change proposals on any section of the 2021 IECC or just the electrification, low energy, and carbon new sections? That's a great question. So comments are going to be accepted on, comments and code change proposals will be accepted on any provision. I will note that the Energy Code Board is actually going to be working from the 2024 edition of the IECC when it is finally published. We have been waiting a little bit for that, but when that is published, that is the code edition that the Energy Code Board will be working from. And so we will be accepting any code change proposals or code addition proposals that anyone would like to submit.
And Adam, I just wanted to add to that quickly, in addition to accepting proposals on the 2024 IECC, we're also very open to accepting proposals or changes on the model electric and solar ready codes as well, since we'll be revisiting that in our process.
Yes, thank you, Kim. So yeah, the electric ready and solar ready requirements will actually be part of the current code that we are developing. They're going to be incorporated into it. And so, as Kim said, we are going to be updating those requirements and would love proposals about that as well. The next question is, are the meetings virtual or in person? All of the public comment meetings are going to be virtual. And then as far as the equity committee meetings, I think we have not fully decided. It is likely those are probably going to be virtual just because we are seeking regional diversity across Colorado. And as you all know, Colorado is a very large state and meeting in person can be very difficult. So those will likely be virtual. Next question is, how are you building capacity for populations that do not usually participate in decisions like these? Can you give examples? Allie, I might turn that question to you.
Yeah, great question. I think the idea is that we are recruiting for a diverse set of experiences. Some of the folks that are going to be on the equity committee are technical experts from the communities, but some are not. And so we want to be able to offer this as a learning experience as well, to kind of connect the dots for folks that are typically focused on things like public health or environmental justice and that kind of thing, and be able to connect their experiences and their work with what we're doing in the energy codes. Does that help answer that question? As far as who is on the equity committee, we have a few members so far, but we are still, as Adam mentioned, in the recruitment phase. And so, like he said, we're looking for regional diversity, racial diversity, and all of these other factors.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie.
As well as experiences.
Awesome. Thank you. So the next question is, the question is, I'm assuming, related to the statement about updating the electric ready and solar ready requirements. Yes, that would include the EV ready requirements as well. All right, next question. Is Colorado considering new homeowners meeting Energy Star 7.0 for windows in 2025? That question is going to be outside of the scope, most likely, of this energy code. As far as what other policies may be adopted for Energy Star 7.0 for windows, I can't necessarily speak to that, but that will not necessarily be part of this requirement or this process. Allie, maybe I'll let you take the next one as well. Can you speak more to the recruitment approach for the equity committee?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first, the Colorado Energy Office does have an environmental justice coordinator Isamar Pichardo, and we have been working closely with her to make sure that our approach here aligns with the groundwork that Colorado Energy Office, has already done. Lotus is also very well connected in many of the communities that we're seeking input from, and so we've also leveraged our own network to this end. And yes, we're taking cues from the community leaders that we've spoken to. We're happy to discuss this more offline as well if you have more questions or if you want to provide some leads for us.
And I would just add one note to that we also asked our Energy Code board to if they had any contacts or connections and folks that they thought would serve well on the equity committee. Again, recognizing both that racial and geographical diversity that we're aiming for. And so that also played a part in pulling together our recruitment list for the equity committee.
Awesome. Thank you both. Next question. To clarify, the process would be a good place to give comment suggestions on the EV requirements related to the Energy Code. Yes. So the Energy Code board will be revisiting the electric ready, solar ready, and EV ready requirements. And so if you have any considerations or proposals for the Energy Code board to consider as they're updating those requirements, this would be a great process for that. Next question, can you clarify that no one can offer a code change to the 2024 IECC to reduce requirements? So members of the public can propose code changes to reduce stringency of the 2024 IECC requirements for consideration by the Energy Code Board. However, once the Energy Code Board has finalized this code, local governments will not be able to adopt anything that weakens those requirements. So proposals are welcome to be submitted to do so, but once the code is final, that will no longer be allowed. Next question, how are you considering the fact that for every added cost, it prices numerous struggling home buyers out of the possibility to purchase a home regardless of how energy efficient it is? So I think we are it's a good question and one that is a very challenging one to address. There are many factors in affordability that are considered and taken into account by the Energy Code Board, by the state. And one of those certainly is the upfront cost of purchasing or renting a property. And there are also considerations for ongoing costs. There are many folks in the state that face regular challenges with maintaining their ability to live in a home or own a home based on challenges with high utility bills, indoor air quality and health challenges, and general unsafe or unsuitable housing conditions. And so those are all factors that the Energy Code Board is going to be taking into account, both the upfront costs as well as the ongoing life cycle costs associated with home ownership and rentership. Next question, are any commercial builders or developers included on the Energy Code Board, or is the focus primarily on residential buildings? So I do not believe, so I guess the first answer to that question is that the Energy Code Board is definitely focused on both residential and commercial buildings. Per the state statute, there were, to my recollection, no specific seats that were assigned for commercial builders. However, we have a number of experts who work in the design and development of commercial buildings and as well as large multifamily buildings. So I don't believe we actually have a commercial builder who is represented on the board, but again, we have folks who are very experienced in commercial design and building.
Awesome, Adam. And then there were a couple of questions that just came through the chat, so I want to make sure we're capturing those. I think a few were submitted in Q&A, but one from Carola Hanks. Will there be an opportunity for the Wildfire Resilience Code Board for Colorado to coordinate with the Energy Code Board so that we work in coordination as both codes are developed?
Sorry, struggling with the unmute button, as we all do. So yes, there is actually going to be opportunities for collaboration. I am actually just had some outreach from the Division of Fire Prevention and Control staff who are overseeing the Wildfire Resiliency Code Board. And we are going to certainly be coordinating and strategizing on opportunities for alignment and coordination between those two boards. So we're early days, haven't exactly figured out what that's going to look like, but we certainly will want to foster that.
Thanks, Adam. And then we have a hand raised from Kevin. So Kevin, I'm going to promote you so you can talk and feel free to ask your question.
I apologize. That was raised in error.
Oh, okay. No worries. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, well, I think that's all of the open questions. Before we move on, just quick check. Any final questions from folks attending? Whether you feel free to raise your hand and we can allow you to speak and ask your question, or feel free to drop your question in the Q&A. Adam, so one more question came in the Q&A here.
Thank you. Yeah. So it says, also, even though there is a cost savings for more efficient homes, that is not considered when a buyer is being qualified for the purchase of a home. Lenders use the same ratios and requirements for debt to income as of an efficient home, as well as an older, less efficient home. And when you raise the cost of a new home, the lower cost is not considered. We absolutely recognize that as being a challenge, and is something that needs to be considered and factored in for not only development of requirements for energy codes, but also in the broader lending community. And it is something that we have had discussions with folks on, and I know is being addressed both at the state and national level about how to consider the benefits of energy efficiency and the value of energy efficiency in appraisals and home loans. And so while that problem certainly has not been solved by any stretch, it is one that we are well aware of, and one that the state and national actors are certainly working to try to address.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Okay. Well, if we see any other hands or additional questions, we can continue to answer those. But I think we'll continue on through our presentation. So, Allie, back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. So as we mentioned at the beginning, we wanted to put all of that into practice and ask you all for the best ways to collect your priorities and goals for this code. I think the first thing we'll do is take you on a quick tour of the Energy Code Board website to show you where all of those things Adam mentioned are located, temporarily at least, and then lead you all through a few questions to make sure that we're, again, offering the best ways for you all to provide input into this process, and in ways that make sense for you and your communities, and meeting you all where you're at. So with that, again, here's that link. And you might recognize this from the screenshot. This is the website for the Energy Code Board. This is that description of the model low energy and carbon code. You can see a little bit more information here about the previous year's model electric ready and solar ready code package that Adam mentioned. And then the Colorado Energy Office also hosted a couple informational webinars on what that code is and what happens next. And if you scroll down here, you'll find that description of who the Energy Code Board is, and what they all represent. Here's the list of that members. You can find all of the meeting materials to figure out what the Energy Code Board has been discussing, and what topics they're talking about, and to see how we've all been taking your input into consideration. And finally, we have here the Google form to submit your comments or code proposals. So clicking on this button here will take you to that survey, And you can also see what comments and code proposals have already been submitted. And here's Adam's email. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free to email him. And yeah, that will also be coming up in a slide later. So with that,
Allie, do you
little bit
want
of
to, really quick, sorry, do you want to show where the link for the sign up is as well for the email list?
yes,
And it's, I think, right
that
here.
is here at the end of this bit here. So please definitely sign up for the contact list if you are interested. Kim dropped it in the chat earlier.
And I will note
We
that's one of
send
the
regular.
updates I will note that's one of the updates we are making to the website to make that much clearer and more obvious. So if you can't find it, no worries. We will certainly be making that easier to locate.
Perfect. Thanks, Adam. All right. So with that, we'd like to ask you a few questions. We are using a tool called menti.com to collect your feedback. So if you can pull out your phone and scan this QR code, or if you're on your laptop or computer, feel free to just type in menti.com and then fill in this code 82226181. Once you enter that code into the prompt, you'll see a screen with a question. And I'll move that over here. So here you'll see again what that code is. We want to know what the best ways for you and your communities are to tell us about your priorities and concerns for this process. So we want to know how well we've been hitting the mark so far, and what we can do better in terms of reaching you all. Awesome. So we're seeing a few responses here for website updates, forums like this, those website comments, some public meetings. Folks want to see some formal public comment at one of the board meetings. Surveys. Some planned deadlines for each part of the process. See a recommendation for small working groups from targeted communities that are in person and not all online. A +1, smaller localized conversations. So posting some updates to the website, listening sessions for the public, a clear timeline. Adam, it's kind of looking like a lot of overhaul on that website for you to do. Regional roundtable, smaller focused conversations where possible. This is really great feedback. Thank you so much. Any other ideas? Maybe some
Looks
things.
like a few new responses came in, but I'm not seeing them pop up. I wonder if there's a way to scroll down. Oh, here we go.
Scroll down. Cool. Focus groups with home builder associations and commercial builders, stakeholder reviews, public comment periods, role-specific sessions. Anything that you all have seen that worked particularly well in the past for something dense and technical like this, we would definitely love to hear about. My concern for the process is that we don't always understand the possibilities of what can change. That's a great point. Definitely something that we can explore further with the equity committee and with the board as well. Enough time to review proposals and provide comments with something as complex as this. We'll definitely need more than just a few weeks and maybe more than 30 days too. I think this is probably a reference for the last process that we went through, where we did have somewhat of a more condensed timeline. Opportunities to incentivize the program. I'd love to know a little bit more about that, if someone is comfortable sharing that in the chat. Perhaps we're talking about incentives to participate, or yeah.
Maybe also, Allie, incentives for community adoption and compliance with updated codes. Just throwing out another idea.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Lindsay. The Air Pollution Control Division has a standard incentives process for community participation. It could be good for consistency to consider that from the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment. Thank you. All right, I'm seeing no new responses here, so I'll ask you all. It sounds like we already got some consensus on this, but are email updates and public meetings the right ways to keep you informed on this process? Some folks who are interested in subscribing to those updates and attending the meetings. I'd be curious too if folks are able to share in the chat if there's certain types of information that you would like to be updated on. If that looks like a summary of the board's discussions, or maybe just keeping to some decisions that they've made at a meeting, or just keeping updates on when the next public meeting will be. I'd love to know a little bit more about that if folks are comfortable sharing that in the chat. Great. Well, we look forward to seeing you all at the meetings. We just have one more question for you all here. If there's any other ways that you would like to be kept updated and informed, we welcome some feedback on this. We know that people get a lot of emails these days, so we definitely recognize that that might not be the best place to find information, or people aren't able to join 2-hour meetings for the board. Definitely recognize that. So we've heard a lot of great ideas so far. Just wanted to open up the space to see if there's anything else that we should be considering. I have a comment in the chat. As we know, that discussion is based on the upcoming International Energy Code. then what will be important is what changes are proposed early on. That's a great point. We know that code hasn't officially been released yet. And so definitely I think it would be helpful to have some information about what changes are occurring with that process. So, okay, cool. We're seeing email is definitely the best way for some people. The website update will be great. Also prefer email. Provide updated meeting notes and minutes on the website.
So I guess I can address that one specifically too. So under the Energy Code Boards page where there was the drop-down menu for meeting materials, if you look in that folder, each of those meetings are provide updated meeting minutes from the previous meeting. I will note that meeting minutes do not actually get uploaded until they are approved at the next board meeting, because they are not final until they're approved by the board. But after those meeting minutes are approved at each meeting, they are uploaded to those folders. So you can certainly always find those there, but they are about one meeting behind as a result of needing to be approved before they can be uploaded.
And I would just add to that if folks do have their own time where they're interested in reviewing the recording while we wait for those meeting minutes to be finalized, those are available immediately on the CEO's YouTube page.
Email for brief notes with larger files for code proposals on the website. That makes a lot of sense to me. Sometimes a text that indicates the website material is updated. I don't know that we have that capability, but we could certainly attach links in the emails that we send out for when the website has been updated with certain materials.
I'm not 100% sure I'm understanding the one about email for brief notes with larger files for code proposals. If the question is if you can email it to somebody rather than submitting it through the form, you are welcome to email them to me. My email will be at the end of the presentation, and is also on our code board page in several places. So you're welcome to email anything to me if it does not fit within the comment form.
That's funny. I definitely interpreted that as like sending out, like the email updates you send out, Adam, will be brief notes,
well,
whereas
that might be that too.
large files on
also,
the website. We could definitely stay flexible. Can you highlight on the website when new material is introduced? I think that could be helpful as well.
Yeah, I will say one of the best ways is keeping up to date with those latest meeting material postings, and we can certainly be making sure folks are being kept up to date of when those things are being posted via email. And we can make sure that it's more obvious on the website when those updates are live.
Well, cool. I don't want to keep everyone here unnecessarily. So let me return to my presentation. And if there are any other outstanding questions, comments, concerns, I know we just threw a lot of information at you all, so feel free to work this out. The rest of the time is you all's.
And Allie, maybe it might make sense to go to the contact page so we can pull up Adam's email. And then if folks do have questions, feel free to stay on. Our team will be here for the next 30 minutes or so. So happy to answer any additional or final questions. So thank you all so much for being here.
And then also we'll be providing all the links that we have been sprinkling in here throughout the evening on a next slide for when we post these slides on the website.
For those of you that need to jump to your next engagements, thank you guys for spending some time with us to learn about this process and to give us your feedback on how you'd like to stay engaged. We hope you have a wonderful evening. And for those, again, who would like to stay on for any final questions, please feel free to do so and let us know those questions by raising your hand, and we'll jump in to answer. Okay, not hearing any final questions from our last attendees. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar. So thank you everyone for joining, and we look forward to seeing you at